All right, it is Tuesday night, and that means another episode of Goal Horns and Fight Songs. And this week, we do have another guest because it was still a little bit of a slow week with the holiday tournaments, and we figure why not have somebody from a team that we really don't know a whole lot about on can provide some insight. So, Wes, why don't you introduce our guest?
All right, joining us is the host of his own NCHC podcast known as Nacho Talk. Brent Bean. I'm sorry, I apologize. He can be found on Twitter at OMavs Hockey Fan. That handle will be listed below his photo for those watching along on YouTube. Make sure to give him a follow both on his podcast, once again, Nacho Talk, and his personal handle, OMavs Hockey Fan. So, welcome to the show. Again, as we kind of went over before the show started, we're going to jump into the holiday hockey slate, which unfortunately the Mavs were not a part of. And then we'll go into just some straight, Omaha talk and some NCHC talk in general. But welcome to the show. Feel free to jump in when and where you can.
Absolutely, will do. Thanks for having me.
So we do a little thing where we like to pick the games. We pick an individual day basis, not just the series. And I believe Michael has our total counts from the previous week, and then we'll break it down into this week.
Yeah, so the last time we did this, I did not put the totals, but let me get it here. Okay, so I went 1-1 with Western, or no, West went 1-1 with Western. I went 2-0 with the win and loss.
They only. Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
Yep.
I forgot where we were already.
Yeah, we're back a little bit. At UMD with the sweep, so I ended up 4-0. West also had UMD with the sweep. I hate to admit it, but I had your Mavericks losing both games. They did split. West got both of those right, losing Friday, winning Saturday. And we had Colorado College getting swept. And those suckers,
they found a way.
They pulled off the sweep. So entering the holiday break, I was 61-40. West was 62-39. Then the holiday break, it was a little weird with UMD playing the tournament out in Milwaukee. So what we did is, of course, we know the first opponent in Northeastern can pick that game pretty easily. I had UMD winning, West had them losing, and then we both said that they would beat Air Force but lose to Wisconsin depending on who they played. Especially because Wisconsin, they're basically Mankato of the East now.
Yeah, basically.
The coach, half the team, and everything.
Yeah.
So I went 1-1 on that. Miami had them losing to Niagara on Friday, winning Saturday. West had the opposite, so I gained a game there, and then had St. Cloud State sweeping, so now we're even. And I was a little surprised about the St. Cloud score. Now, I didn't watch any of these games. I kind of completely checked out from everything. But St. Cloud, I was a little surprised with how badly they beat Bemidji in their home and home.
I mean, yes and no.
Yeah.
To a point, I think.
Yeah, same.
St. Cloud. They got up to an up and down start, but we figured they were a decent team. Yes, they lost some offensive prowess over the offseason, but I think the main question we were concerned with was, what could Dominic Bassi go back to being a full-time starter, and he's proved that he could and has played extremely well in every game that he's started. Bemidji is one of those teams where we don't know a whole lot about just because they don't compete in our conference. I mean, they compete with a few of the teams here in the non-conference schedule, but not a team we follow wholeheartedly. And St. Cloud's been on a roll since conference play started. I mean, they were undefeated for the most part of that first half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, this middle part of the season, like you said, they're on a roll. I wasn't too surprised to see that they swept. Looking back at the scores, seeing 2-6-1 games, little surprised by that. But I mean, again, like you said, we don't know much about Bemidji. They're kind of just playing hockey at this point in my mind. So I wasn't too surprised, but I think them staying on their role, and I'm sure, as you guys said on your podcast last week that I watched, and they know what they're doing right now, and they just can't be stopped until someone's able to show them, hey, you're still, you're in the NCHC. It's gonna be tough, and maybe you got lucky. Maybe you got a good. I mean, they had a tough NCHC schedule to start, so I mean, it's not, they didn't skate by getting 22, 24 points to start the conference schedule, but yeah, they just kept going, and I don't see that. I haven't looked at their schedule going forward, but I mean, until they face a team that's able to kind of attack their weak spots and find them, then I don't see them slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, and
I think.
people
Oh, go
forget that
ahead, Wes.
they were a top 5 team at one point in the season.
Yeah.
I think it's how they played. Was it either Minnesota? I think, and which they split, didn't they?
I believe so. And well, that's the thing too with Bemidji, and that's with why the scores surprised me so much is Bemidji doesn't play that soft of a non-conference schedule. They'll play North Dakota. They'll play um, Minnesota. They'll play UMD, um, especially North Dakota and UMD. Uh, I had a lot of kids. I grew up in northern Minnesota, and a lot of kids would go to Bemidji State. It's in the middle of nowhere, but a lot of kids will go there, and so they don't play a bad non-conference schedule. And those 2 6-1s, I'm like, wait, what? You you played good teams. What happened? I expected, maybe a couple 2-goal games or something, 1 2-goal games. But yeah, the St. Cloud team, when we were talking start of the season, we're like, ooh, they're going to be tough.
Yeah, I had them definitely near the top of the conference. I don't know that I'd see them running away with it as much as they did, but they did have a little bit of an up and down season, splitting with the likes of Michigan, uh, Alaska, Fairbanks. They were swept by Minnesota State and split with St. Thomas. So, I mean, there were definitely some up and downs to the season. I think they got off to the start we weren't expecting to, but in conference play, they're definitely still one of the premier teams in the conference for sure. And it's helped get their rankings back to where I think they should be in the country. And by some miracle, for some reason, they're behind Western, who they swept earlier this year. And I kind of give them the lean on that a little bit. But maybe things like the fact that they've played Miami already is what's holding them up a little bit. But definitely a team to watch in the second half as they get going. They're off this weekend, but they will jump right back into NCHC action, taking on Denver on the 12th. So we'll talk about those games next week.
Should be good.
Anything else from the weekend that was surprising? Because I think we mentioned it, that this US under 18 team is such a weird thing to put on your schedule, and North Dakota proves why every time. Because for some reason, now they were without Person, who may have been recuperating from a nagging ailment. They ran both backup goalies. He wasn't even listed on the line sheet. So he got the game off, which probably well deserved. I believe he's played every minute since joining the Fighting Hawks from the Red Hawks of Miami. We're seeing he's the goaltender we all believed him to be out of Miami. He just had a piss poor team in front of him, for lack of a better term. Because I hide no ill will or ill feelings towards Miami. They're Western's rival. They're terrible at hockey right now, so whatever.
It's easy to rag on them now.
Hey, I mean,
when the NCHC started, it was a little tough, but now that they've just been tough to watch the last few seasons. Yes. Except they've had Omaha's number So I absolutely hate them too. they're them and CC. They're just the teams we can't beat. So I absolutely cannot stand by.
And I mean that rivalry is going to pick up
Oh.
here next year with the introduction of the 3-team pods that the NCHC is going to. But man, I mean Miami, for whatever reason, they play decent in their non-conference. They split with Niagara, but back to the UND situation, we knew it could have been a trap game. We both picked UND anyway, but I think for the second time in 3 years, they fall to the U.S. Under-18 development team. And we constantly say we don't know why this game gets scheduled. It's not great for either team that plays. Well, I mean, it's great for the U.S. development team no matter what, because they're playing tougher competition. They're getting to experience the college game a little bit early. But if you're that college team and you whoop them, all right, like Western did to start the year, okay, you beat up a bunch of children. And if they win, you lost to a bunch of children. Like, it's a lose-lose for the college program. I don't get this game, other than for, like, scouting purposes.
It's basically a kissing your sister situation. Like, your first kiss is your sister. Well, are you
I
really
don't know
proud
how
of
they
that?
do things in Minnesota, but that is definitely not the norm. You and Alabama have a little bit too much in common there, Michael. I know that you're South Canada, but you need to calm down a little bit.
I don't have a sister, so don't worry about that.
That
was a
raises
fun
more
game to
questions
watch,
than
though.
answers.
That
Oh,
was
go ahead.
like the only. Well, besides, I watched both CC and DU play Minot State, but that was the only really game I was into this weekend, and it was really good. I mean, I love watching North Dakota's broadcast, obviously, because it's the best in the NCHC. But I mean, they were saying all game, like, especially with how close it was, like, this isn't going to be easy. And this, I mean, when US 18 team took the lead and they were like, this is kind of what, like you were saying, this is what you kind of sign up for, is you get these kids who have a lot of talent. They're a really good team, and they come in. And another thing that's great for them is they get to play in arguably one of the best arenas in college hockey for a night. And they showed up and won. So, I mean, it's a win-win for them. I mean,
Yeah.
They've over the last few years, if you just look at the teams that the under-18 team has played, I think probably 4 or 5 years ago they beat the Gophers. Now the Gophers were not very good at the time. I think it was kind of Lucia was out, Motzko was coming in, and they beat them. But North Dakota, I'm pretty sure they've beaten UMD recently. They're beating these good teams, and with them being under 18, there's probably a lot of kids that are still being recruited very heavily. So it's like we've all said, it's good for those kids, but it's not so great for the guys. But it in a sense, it is for the teams that they're playing because, well, North Dakota, both backups got game action. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
it's not conference opponents, but if they're not playing every weekend, they could potentially get rusty. They're just practicing, they kind of lose interest. And now they get a few more game reps in, and some of the guys that are healthy scratches, because you don't know what's going to happen game to game with injuries and everything. Or you look at is it Spicer, getting academically ineligible. Well, now somebody has to step up. You need these guys to be at least a little bit sharper than press box hat trick, as Biz Nasty said, which is 3 hot dogs in a game.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said about the holiday schedule as a chance to get time on the ice for guys who don't normally get it. I mean, Kirk Larson saw half of the game on Saturday for Western Michigan. He hasn't played much since Cameron Rowe kind of took over the crease last year. Denver was able to get some ice time for, I believe it's Matt Davis is their starting goaltender, who went down earlier this season with an injury. He got to play a little bit and their exhibition game against Minot State. That's another thing that I think is a mystery as far as scheduling, or not necessarily a mystery, but some interesting scheduling. Both Colorado College and Denver schedule, I think they're ACHA Division two, or they're a D2 team or something.
Like the club hockey.
Yeah,
with no interest at jumping up to the Division One ranks. With literally their program came out and said, we're not really looking to make the move up to D1, but we're scheduling D1 teams in these exhibitions. An interesting take and an interesting schedule if you're not necessarily looking to make that move. I understand if you're saying hey, we're 3-4 years out, we want to see if our talent is where we think it is. But to come out and straight say, yeah, we're not even looking to make the D1 transition, but we want to go have our team take a whooping on a couple different ice sheets on the weekend is an interesting place to be.
And they're a good team too. They showed their record on both games, I'm pretty sure, and they're a really decent team in their division or whatever. So that's another thing that's it's, if you're looking for better competition maybe or something, I guess you could see if any, especially if any of these guys on their team maybe want to make, if the team doesn't want to, but if these guys are potentially looking to make that move, potentially that are being recruited or want to get some eyes on them maybe, but at the same time, if the team or if the university's not even thinking about making that move, then how do you even come to that conclusion that, hey, ask the guys, do you want to go play these teams that are probably going to go whoop you in 2 nights and, just play a game in, the end of December? If they're yeah, let's do it, then sure, go ahead and sign them up. But like you're saying, it doesn't super make sense on, from a fan perspective. It's nice for CC and Denver. They got some easy wins, to start them back up this year. So
I think as a competitor, I'd want to go out and compete, but knowing who I'm playing, especially with Denver, I think I would have passed. Now, Minot State, they play in the same conference as UMD in all other sports at the Division II level. I don't know why they wouldn't try to make the jump other than Minot's okay, but there's not a whole lot there other than the Air Force Base and a lot of nukes sitting underneath there. So maybe they're even though they have the Minotaurs or whatever they in the NAHL, I think they're kind of there could be a mistake, and we don't want to lose a whole Division I ice hockey program if there's a mistake, because there have been a few at that base.
Yeah.
I mean, the blueprint's there.
I think it's kind of,
I think it was Arizona State. It was a perennial D2 powerhouse. I think they almost went undefeated a year or two before they made the jump to D1. They really had nothing to prove at the D2 level and made the jump up. I think if you're one of those club teams, or you're not trying to build a team from scratch, you have a team already made, and that you're just looking to make the jump, that's the blueprint to follow. If you are forming, a team out of the blue, Penn State's kind of your blueprint to follow. I think they're close to, if not already reaching their 10th year, they're really close to their 10th year as a program. Part of the reason why we have an NCHC is because of the Penn State program and them coming in and proving to be a viable program and wanting to join the Big Ten with the other schools that they play football against in all other sports. So there's paths and blueprints that have proven to be successful out there if you're one of these quote unquote lower ranked teams. And again, I think it's more the messaging of just being yeah, we're not looking to make the leap. We just want to go out and play some hockey, I guess. Just interesting scheduling, really. Western has a history of scheduling Canadian college teams, so that's not necessarily out of the blue, other than, they're picking to do it in the middle of the season. And I think here's the other thing. Would you guys rather play an exhibition game either against an NCAA opponent or a Canadian college, or would you rather play a holiday tournament?
Hmm.
We went to Mankato when Omaha played them at the beginning of the season in their exhibition. That was the first time I'd been to Mankato, and it's not too far from us. So I I loved playing an NCAA opponent, especially to start the season on the road. Granted, when the schedule came out, I wasn't too excited. I was like, that's I'd rather at that point I'd say I'd rather just get a game under our belt and play a Canadian team or something or a Minot State. But halfway through the season now, I think it really benefited us playing an NCAA team at the beginning of the season, especially Mankato, because we didn't know what they were going to look like uh, with all their departures, and it was arguably one of the best games I've seen this season. With the 1-0 shutout by Omaha with the fluke goal with like a minute left. Like it was really good in our opinion because we won. But as I tweeted a couple weeks ago, or a couple nights ago, I would have loved a Canadian college this weekend since we were off, and would love to at least go see some hockey, win or loss. But um, now that I've seen both, I don't really have an opinion if I'd rather play one or the other. I just kind of want that. I don't know if I'd prefer one at the beginning of the season or in the middle of the season either.
I
I don't.
think for
On
me at the beginning of
my
oh,
From a fan. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think for me like at the beginning of the season I don't mind who it is. But once we get into like that later part of the year where we're playing, especially in the NCHC, every game matters. So you're playing meaningful games essentially from November until March. Uh, but when you're bringing in either a D2 team or a Canadian college team, and yeah, it's the winter break, and you want to make sure that your guys are still conditioned. There's a different level of play that exists, and I think we saw that between teams that played exhibition games and teams that played counting games. Like Miami, uh, their level, St. Cloud State, their level of play was different than that of Western, Denver, Colorado College. It might have led to some of the North Dakota situation, other than they weren't necessarily playing all of their starters. But to me, I think when you're in the season, I would rather try to keep up that level of compete. And to some degree, I think Western kind of sat on it a little bit. They got out to a quick 2-0 lead, and then the energy just wasn't as consistent. There were ebbs and flows to the game that you don't normally see at this point in the season, especially for a Western team. Like this is a time of the season where historically Western gets on a little bit of a roll from late November. They usually run through December pretty well into and carry that into mid January. And so to see them kind of limp through an exhibition game, and I know you're going to say limp through, they won 6-2. But if you watched that game at some point, just the talent level that Western plays with, the type of game they play, how they wear teams down, took over the game and led to that third period, that late game success. But they did not have the same energy go to it. Beat them in the deep part of the ice, like get the puck in deep, grind them into the walls. Type of games that we're used to seeing them play. Instead, there were times where they were sitting back where they would have pressed, or there were times where they were going through the motions as opposed to really trying to make sure that that pass is tape to tape. It's just throw it to his zone and hope your guy beats the other guy. And if he doesn't, oh well, this game doesn't count.
I think for me, I'd rather I'd rather start the season with an NCAA opponent, even if it is just an exhibition game. But because we did that with Michigan Tech this year, we've done it. But I'd rather play an NCAA opponent because the level is going to be different, and then play a Canadian team or a Minot during the Christmas break versus a tournament because, like I said earlier, you don't know what's going to happen. And because the NCHC season is such a grind and it can be physical, and I mean, last year, I don't know how many suspensions we had, but you have guys missing it and everything. You just want to get those guys game reps, which I said earlier. So you want to keep everyone as sharp as possible, and practice can only do so much. Yeah, the level is of competition isn't quite there, but it's still game speed. It's still something, I hope it doesn't happen, but person could go tear his ACL or pull his groin or something for North Dakota uh, next week or whenever they play next. Well, now these guys have to go and step up. At least like UMD and St. Cloud last year, they had the two goalie system where last year it was uh Bassie and Castor, and UMD it's Thiessen and Stay Skull. If one goes down, you have that other guy there that he can actually step up and take that role. But your team like North Dakota, your team like Denver or Colorado College, or how Miami was last year, you only have that one goalie. You only have certain number of defensemen that are game ready. Somebody goes down. Well, these guys haven't played in however many months. So I'd take the L potentially in an exhibition game versus playing like a holiday tournament and um or an NCAA game in general for these guys. Now, the way the schedule works out, uh, like UMD, we play St. Thomas in an exhibition. Yeah, we played a holiday tournament, but at least we're getting that little bit of a break too in there. So it depends on how you schedule it, but I like at least one exhibition kind of right around the holidays somehow.
All
I
right.
would have loved if Omaha would play a game this weekend, just because it's, especially since we're like the series against St. Cloud was the last home game for like 40 days. So
Yeah.
they're in Arizona this weekend, and then they go out to Grand Forks, and then middle of January they're back at home. And granted, I mean, the first month of hockey for us was at home, so that was really nice. So it's kind of, what comes around goes around. So now that, going this long without it we kind of knew it was coming, but it still would have been nice just a little bit to have seen him. But that's just how scheduling works out sometimes. So
Well, you guys love to schedule at home at the beginning of the year. And
yeah,
every year it's like, okay, well, season starts here. Omaha's first road trip's not till February 23rd. Like, it's ridiculous.
yeah, I know the last few seasons have kind of been like that. Where I mean, this year in recent history it was a little ridiculous. It was nice. I mean, 4 straight weekends of home hockey was great, but I think like last year, the year before was a little more balanced out, kind of like one. I think last year was like one at home, one away, two at home, one away, and that was more of what I'd like to see because obviously I know from our team's perspective, they love going on road trips, obviously getting to know each other and everything. So that road exhibition game was great. But then spending the next 5 weeks, because we had our off week after our first weekend of hockey, was um, nice to play at home, but not great in terms of team like camaraderie, I guess. Since they're at home, obviously, I don't know. I'm not a hockey player. I'm not on the team, so I can't speak for them. But I know the team enjoys being on the road and going out and having some of that time away from home, if even just for a weekend. So, um, yeah, it's just how it worked. Yeah, this season was uh, heaven for us, but now we're getting into the part of the season where it's like, okay, now we're gonna go a little bit without seeing them. So, and historically we're not great on the road, so that also kind of sucks from a fan's perspective of Omaha. So, love to see him at home, but need to get those road games and get some confidence, especially against some really good teams coming up too. So,
Yeah, you guys are in a grind out of the on the back end of this thing.
Yeah.
You've got where to go? Ah, stop, move it. I'm trying to read, you stupid thing. You got the holiday tournament. You got North Dakota. You welcome Denver in, but then you're back on the road to St. Cloud State. Uh, Duluth coming into town, and then back on the road to Western Michigan, back home for Colorado College, out to Miami, and then you wrap up with North Dakota at home. So I mean, your back half of the season is here, there, like a lot of travel in the back half of that schedule.
Mm.
Uh, and I
Yep.
think, like, to me, like, I think I would want to get some of those early week non-conference games scheduled to where we're traveling a little bit, just to kind of get used to that travel schedule. You mentioned
Yeah.
it for team building purposes, and like Western has made a few trips to Alaska, and those are like the trips that guys love going on. When you have to go out, like a couple days extra just because of the amount of travel you're going through to get there and the experience of being up there. But I think it just does a lot to understand the schedule and the grind of a season, and to put all of that on the important half of the season. Because here's the other thing I was going to ask you, like, we kind of mentioned it. Omaha does not really do themselves any favors, or at least too many favors, with you guys' non-conference schedule. You guys put a lot of faith that you guys are going to have a good team in the NCHC schedule, and not to hopefully burst any Mavericks bubbles, but you guys have not made it to St. Paul ever. Like, you're putting a lot of faith in that NCHC schedule, and to not have the results when there's been times where you guys have had a schedule, record wise, a really good team, but the
I mean,
wins there.
last year.
Yeah, last year you guys
Yeah.
finished third in the NCHC, and yet even if St. Cloud State hadn't won the tournament, they would have jumped you into the NCAA tournament because they were way above in the pairwise, and their non-conference schedule was just that much better. Like, how do you guys work with that, or is that something that you guys notice too, and you want to see more sense put onto the non-conference schedule so you don't necessarily have to work so hard in the conference? I mean, everyone's working hard in the conference, don't get me wrong. I think that's everyone's first goal, is to win either the Penrose or the tournament title and get that at-large bid, but there's a lot you can do to help your team out by scheduling some tougher non-conference opponents, or playing that non-conference schedule a little smarter, and really kind of alleviate some of that pressure when you're going to be playing top teams week in and week out in the NCHC conference schedule.
That was a very big conversation this last off season. Right when the season ended, obviously, the big thing was Brad Schlossman put out that if the very first weekend of hockey in Omaha was different, even if they would have gotten one win against Niagara last year when they got swept, they were in the tournament. And that began a big conversation of every single game counts in the college hockey schedule. It doesn't matter who you're playing. You could be playing number one team. You could be playing Stonehill. It matters. You need wins, get you into the tournament, and we could go 10-0 in our non-conference, but then you need to beat the teams you need to beat in the NCHC, and it seems to be one of those things where we go undefeated non-conference, we play really decent in NCHC play, and then we lose 3 out of 4 to CC in Miami, and there goes home ice, there goes a tournament bid, and that's your season. You 75% of the season was great, love it, and then the teams you need to beat can't beat them, then it bites you in the butt. And that's been the last 3 or 4 seasons for us, and it's just really frustrating. Last season, I don't think I'm ever going to get over last season. You were, minutes from overtime. I think it was in Game 3 last year, or minutes from St. Paul, and I think it was like second half of the third period in Game 3 last year. Like, you need to play every team if it's an NCHC team with the season on the line. And I think this, like I said, last season was an absolute heartbreaker. Of the last 3 or 4 seasons where Omaha's been a contender for most of the season, for last season, first home ice since I think the second season of the NCHC at Baxter. Finished third, like less than a game's worth of points from second, and hosting, a CC or Miami. And then you get North Dakota for 5 games straight, like it's been for a few seasons. Like you get the same opponent, same. It's the life of an Omaha Mavericks hockey fan.
Well,
It's tough, but I mean,
well, let me tell you, hosting Colorado College in the playoffs is no cakewalk. Because the 2 times those
Yeah,
guys have
that's
made
true.
it to the St. Paul part of the tournament, they went through Kalamazoo to get there.
At least the last
Yeah.
2 years, the team that's won UMD and St. Cloud has won the tournament. But there were 2 things that I was going to say, and I forgot the first one. But the other one was with that non-conference schedule. Oh, I know what the first one was. We'll go back to it. The treating every game because it's an NCHC opponent. You had mentioned earlier, Colorado College, Miami. Miami's had UMD's number as well. Like it doesn't matter who you're playing. Miami had 6 wins, 4 wins a couple of years, and 2 of them were against the Bulldogs. I'm like, really? This team sucks. But then with the non-conference schedule, do you think that being in Omaha kind of hurts the teams that you play non-conference? Because, I mean, as a UMD fan, the St. Cloud fans, we have Bemidji, we have Mankato, we have Minnesota. Michigan Tech is fairly close by. Northern Michigan is fairly close by. And then we have our conference with St. Cloud and North Dakota in state. They're always they're easy to get to. They're all within a few hours, and they're always pretty competitive. Denver has the history. Colorado College, even though they've been down, they have a pretty good history. Western Michigan, they have, Ferris had one good year, but you have the Michigan teams that can come there. Miami isn't too far from Michigan. Do you think that just being where you are geographically kind of and not having that quote unquote blue blood history hurts that non-conference scheduling that could push you up in the pairwise?
I think it does, and it goes back to like how we began is something that's just gone on is we're very friendly to new programs. So we got Arizona. We scheduled Arizona State when they came up because we're not trying, but we're recognizing how we became a program and how other teams gave us a chance. And so our administration likes to do the same. And so, like I said, we got Arizona for the first few years. They came in the D1. We started Augustana this year. That was fun. That's really one of our first ever home and home series. And especially in the last 20 years, I mean, we've been around 26 years. That was our first home and home series that, I can remember. And that was great. Granted, the drive up to Sioux Falls that day was the worst driving I think I've ever done because it was the first snow. And I don't think it was supposed to snow at like 4 or 5 p.m. in Omaha, and it came at 10 a.m. So no one was prepared, and that was great. But I do think it has a little bit of part is location. I mean, look at the teams we're playing that we have. Those contracts with is it's LIU, New York. We've had Alaska in, so that's a trip. So it's team. I've got a nice little spreadsheet of teams that we haven't played yet, and all those teams are on the East Coast, and so it's tough to. It's definitely tough being right in the middle with all of the only teams around us are in the conference. Denver's, an hour flight. CC's an hour and a half flight. The only I don't know many places that we get to drive to. The team gets to drive to because of I'm pretty sure there's a rule about busing. I think the only place they get to bus is to Minnesota. Otherwise,
Mhm.
I think they fly or something to Fargo and then bus up to Grand Forks. So it's definitely something that um, probably hurts them a little bit, is being right in the middle of the country where um, all the teams that we get to play are on the coast or in Alaska. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's something like that.
I think at least with some of the Alaska, it's a little bit of that old WCHA when like back in the when
Yeah, for sure.
the Sea Wolves, right, I can never that's Anchorage. I can never remember which
Yeah.
one's which. But yeah, Anchorage, you know, they were in there. I think that's kind of it. But I mean, somebody's got to schedule them somehow if they're going to keep their program going. But
Yeah.
that makes sense. And yeah, I could see Mankato, like down in the Twin Cities, I hear they have advertisements for visiting Omaha and everything, and it's not that far of a drive, but
No.
um, even even to get up to UMD, it would probably St. Cloud, maybe they could have that rule where you could drive there, but UMD would probably be flying into the Twin Cities and then driving up to Duluth because it's a couple hour drive.
Hmm.
So that makes a lot of sense. Um, I just kind of wanted your opinion on that because I had been thinking about that. It's just like geographically, you guys are kind of screwed as far as non-conference.
Yeah, I think now
Yeah.
the closest would now be Lindenwood.
Yeah. In St. Louis. I mean, it's even though that's another flight. That's not very. That's. I mean, there's. It's it's a it's tough because it's especially as fans too. I mean, we make the drive. I mean, we make the drive up to Twin Cities. We've been to St. Cloud a few times. I've made the drive to Duluth a couple times, but otherwise, I mean, thankfully we have like family out in Colorado, so it's nice. We can make a full weekend out of going out to either Denver or Colorado Springs, um, and hopefully, I've heard the Augustana series will become part of our schedule for the next few years. I think next year is both at home and here in Omaha, instead of the home and home. So um, it's tough getting out and seeing them. There's a few places we still haven't been just because it is like we haven't been to Grand Forks yet. We need to go out to Kalamazoo, but it's just so far. It's kind of like we need to plan a whole trip, and especially we've got a little one now, so it's a little tougher. So
If only you could get to St. Paul.
if only there was a tournament, could figure out a way to win 2 games in a weekend to get there. I've been to all of them because I've the first couple of years I went with my dad and my uncle. He lives up there, so I just go. It's a weekend of hockey. It's great. And then like after I graduated, I was like, okay, this is the year. Like I'm going, but they need to go there too. And like I said, last year was I was really excited because I thought last year was the year, and then nothing great happened. And then we went and saw CC make the championship game, and I'm like, that it's we just need to figure out how to get a formidable opponent and win 2 games in a weekend.
So, did you go then when they had it at the Target Center too?
Yep.
Okay.
I found my inaugural year program from the Frozen Face Off. Yeah, it was interesting. I liked how they did tickets back then, and how they did um, how it was basically GA up top on the ends,
Mm-hmm.
so you could sit anywhere
Yep.
as long as you had a ticket there. So that was great. And now it's like, you know, you have to find an assigned seat, and they're all expensive and
I
whatever.
It was just really weird at the Target Center scene because I had only been there for concerts and basketball games. And so to see that as a hockey arena was very confusing and I was very lost and I knew where I was going, but at the same time I'm like, this doesn't look right. Like
Yeah.
this is like 15 feet above where it should be. And I was just lost. But it was cool. I'm happy that they had moved it to the X, but now it's kind of a good segue into the new tournament format, which I am not a fan of. I'm slowly kind of coming around to it, but you kind of fit in perfectly to the new tournament format in wanting to go to the games. And I get you want to have the full arena, you want to have it for the students and that home atmosphere. But I think tournament games should be played at a neutral site. Be, may the best team win. And then two, fans like you, fans like me, okay, one weekend you could be going to Denver and then say you win in Denver. Well, the next weekend Omaha's in Kalamazoo playing Western. You I mean, unless you're a millionaire that I don't know about, if so, throw some our way. But most fans of these college teams can't afford that, so they have to pick and choose and kind of hope that their team goes there. And even so, there's going to be such a small number of tickets that are available to them. I think it sucks for the fans of the opposition. It's great for the fans of the home team. And when we talked about it last week, it's like, okay, yeah, that's what it's for. Perfect, but you're alienating a whole group of fans. And me, like you, I just like a great weekend of hockey. Now, there might be other life commitments that I have and whatever, but I wanted to go last year and just watch all three games. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's close for me, but it makes it so much cheaper instead of spending thousands of dollars to fly two places. Like, yeah, it'd be expensive for you because you have the hotel and driving or the flight, but it's still not going from one side of the conference to the other, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I like I said, I listened to your guys' discussion on it last week, and I didn't think about that part. And when you brought it up, I was like, that's, I mean, especially for us. I mean, first home series was last year, and to potentially only have one game, and that probably be a quarterfinal game. Um, Obviously, would be great. I'd love to see them host a quarterfinal game, but I'd also, if like you're saying, if we're a bottom team and we have to go on the road and we find a way to win, there's a very good chance we're back on the road the next weekend. And then say we find another way to win and we're a 6 or 7 seed back on the road to another place that we probably can't go. And yeah, it would suck because, like you guys were saying too, I don't know if we'd even be able to watch it unless we're at home in the arena. So I do hope they find a good media stream. If it is ESPN Plus, like you guys were saying, that'd be great. We already have it. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
great, but it would definitely be an investment in the team to make those kinds of trips just for one game and hope you win, and say it is like a Western for us or a Grand Forks. Like, um, you kind of just have to hope. And yeah, I mean it's great. It's great for those teams that win.
Yeah,
for the
and
North Dakotas, the Denvers, and you might have 3 straight weekends of home hockey, and that's great. But for teams on the bottom, you're not going to see much of the benefits of this new tournament.
I mean, it's for me, it's been easy I didn't go last year, but the year prior, it's been easy because we played St. Cloud. Well, shoot, I'm an hour and a half from Duluth. I'm an hour from St. Cloud. I can shoot up either way, and I can go watch and spend that money. But um, for the teams that have to travel, quarterfinal series doesn't matter as much, especially because you can see it on NCHC TV. But then just having that central location, and for the people that love watching hockey, it's to me, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, that sucks. My team's out, but I had this 3-day or 2-day ticket for all 3 games. What else am I gonna do? And
That's what's
I
that's what's been nice. Real quick, but that's what's been nice about going up every year is, yeah, Omaha's not there, but I have 3 games of hockey that I have absolutely no like investment in, and I get to just cheer for hockey, and that's been amazing for, I think it's 10 and frozen face-offs that I've been able to go to. Like it's great because I get to cheer for whoever I want to, and not really be upset.
one of the things, and I know Wes, you're waiting to talk, but I'm just gonna say this. One of the arguments that was against me on Twitter was, why is one city getting to reap the benefits of all these people traveling when the host city could? But, and this is something that I just thought of because I'm not that quick-witted, you're saying money is going to be influxed into these host cities, but you're also arguing for the home fans. So the home fans are the same people that spend their money in these cities at the same time. Like they do it. You're not in getting a whole influx of cash from out of town tourists, in a sense, because the people that are going to be there, they already go there. They already spend their money at these businesses and bars and restaurants and whatever. They're going to go there. Perfect. They're already probably going to the games anyway, especially the college students. It's that out of town cash flow that comes in that I don't quite understand that part of it. If you want to argue, well, all these cities get to benefit from who? Like Omaha, UMD, North Dakota, they'd probably get what, 200-300 seats, maybe, depending on the size of the arena. Like, I don't know. I just don't quite see it. Okay, now Wes, you can talk.
Well, this might play into what you were talking about too, but I'm looking more at the future and what it could mean. They've made it so your conference finals are still the best 2 out of 3 series. The next weekend you're playing one game. The next weekend you're playing one game. I wonder if in the future at some point we're going to see all 3 weekends become a best 2 out of 3 series. Because that would make the most sense as to why you're making them spread out as much as you are, other than the fact that you want to rest the teams that win these games to go into the national tournament. But if the conference is really looking to make the most amount of money, as the conference or these institutions are, that might be something they're looking at too. Who knows how long there were talks to add Arizona State to the conference. Who knows? We know that this was the decision to leave St. Paul, St. Paul was probably a couple years prior to this, because we know that was supposed to be the contract renewal year, is the year that they're not going back, the year that we're starting this new playoff run. So those discussions have probably been in the works for at least the last year since, Commissioner Weems took over. So I wonder if there is some talk on the back end of possibly moving this to all 3 being series at some point down the road, which again would lead credence to why they're splitting apart um, the semis and the finals. Why they want to move to home ice for those. Um, could it be a push to secure a better rights deal? All these things. But yeah, that was kind of the thing that I was kicking around this week was could it be possible that we see series in college hockey finals and conference finals?
I don't I don't know how the final would go playing a best of three. It seems like a lot of games to be played. It's, I mean, granted, in the NCHC, I think you play potentially 9 extra games. I think you deserve to win the NCHC, conference championship. I think a semifinal best of three makes a little bit more sense, but who knows at this point? We only know what we know. So um, you certainly hope that they do what's best. And yeah, I mean, if you want the best team from your best team or teams from your conference to make the tournament, then yeah, you put them through a bit of a ringer to get to the tournament.
Um, one thing that I was thinking about earlier, and because we've been talking about the playoffs, but now with the new format that's going to come in with Arizona State coming in and the three groups, I think one of the things is how are we going to do these end of the year series? Because with the 8 teams, it's kind of UMD St. Cloud, it's Colorado College in Denver, it's Western Miami, and then you guys got stuck with North Dakota. But it's going to be interesting to see that end of the year schedule. Are they going to keep those rivalries and just or quote unquote rivalries, um, and just say because St. Cloud, I'm kind of and I think you guys, other than get beat up on and played North Dakota so much, you were kind of like, not really rival. To a certain point, are they just going to say Arizona State, you got to figure out somebody for that last weekend because that's kind of become a staple? And then, like you were saying, you're playing North Dakota. We're playing St. Cloud the last few. I mean, you play them so much. How do you, what's your view on that? And what do you think they're going to do? Because I think what they should do is just tell Arizona State to go F off and figure out their last game.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, do you have Omaha like rotate year by year that they finish with Arizona State and then North Dakota? Because I mean, are you going to break up DUCC at the end of the year, even though those are the two closest teams, and like all these rivalry games are super close to each other, and then you have Omaha in the middle with North Dakota up north and Arizona State way out west. So, how, like you're saying, how is that going to work if all of these travel partners are already, built in? I don't know how, like you're saying, I don't know how that works because we, like you're saying too, like you guys always play St. Cloud at the end of the year, and then hey, guess what? You guys are the 4-5 again this year, and you get to play next week. And there's been times where we end the season with Denver a couple times, and it just works out. Hey, that's also the 3-6 for next week. You might as well just stay in Denver because that's where you're going next week, and you get to play them another 3 games. That happened a few years ago, and that sucked. And last year we finished in North Dakota, and then that's the 3-6 next week, and you guys are playing in Omaha. Have fun playing the same team. Like, so you hope that it's able to be rotated a bit. And I totally forgot about the pods that they're doing starting next year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Totally forgot about that part. So yeah, I'll be interested as much as you guys probably will be to see how they make that work.
I'm sure
Yeah, I
it'll be
think
some sort of rotation. Like one year it'll be Colorado, and Denver at the end of the year. The next year it'll be Colorado and Arizona. The year after it'll be Arizona and Denver. Will be kind of the rotation that each pod will take. But
I mean,
yeah,
every year one team is going to be left out of a matchup because it's 9, and so then it's who do you play? Do you have one less non-conference series during the beginning part of the year and then put it at the end? And I mean, I could see rotating, especially within the pods where, you guys, again, geographically, you kind of got screwed because you're with Western and Miami, but travel wise, you're not going to really break up St. Cloud, UMD, and North Dakota. You're not going to break up Denver, CC, and then Arizona State. Like,
Yeah.
They laid it out fairly decently, but at the same time, there's so many questions to be asked about the future going forward because us as fans, we know it is one way, and they have a plan. They wouldn't have done it if they didn't have a plan. It could be a great plan. It could be a terrible plan. There's a plan in place that's going to work. I just think that one team is going to get rotated out every year somehow, some way.
well, I mean, every weekend in conference play, someone's going to be without a conference opponent.
Yeah.
So the scheduling for the NCHC is going to look completely different next year. I think we should be getting close to getting at least the conference schedule here in the next couple months. That's always the first part to come out, and then we'll see the non-conference closer to midsummer. But yeah, no, the conference scheduling thing is super interesting, and I can't wait to see what they come up with. The playoffs, that's interesting in itself. There's a lot of change that's coming, and again, like how much of it's been in the works. What are they really looking for in the future? Are they looking to potentially get to 10, 12 teams in the conference at some point? There's so much up in the air. And then you hear other people are like, oh, well, this team's looking to leave, or they want to make all sports or all conferences the same sport you play for everything. Well, that doesn't necessarily work when one conference literally just canceled one sport last year and the team had to go to another sport or another conference. Western faced that with their men's soccer program. MAC does no longer sponsors men's soccer. So the Western soccer team had to go join the Missouri Valley Conference. Ended up winning the conference outright and then winning the conference tournament. But, like you're saying you want one conference to sponsor all of your school sports. Yeah, well, that's not kind of really how the real world works. So these one sport conferences, they may not be quote unquote the future, but they're the right now, and they're something that we have to keep an eye on. And NCHC has been the pinnacle of college hockey since it formed, and I really don't see that turning away anytime soon.
Yeah, and I mean, even you look at just within the NCHC and the new CCHA, a lot of those schools are Division 2 or Colorado College is Division 3 in everything but hockey. UMD is Division 2, St. Cloud's Division 2, Mankato in the CCHA is Division 2. I think Michigan Tech is Division 2. Northern Michigan might be. I'm not entirely sure. But I mean, between Colorado College, UMD, and St. Cloud, just in general, that's 3 out of the 8 teams that are Division 2 in every other sport except for hockey. And then Denver, North Dakota, Omaha, Miami, and Western are kind of those mid-major Division 1s otherwise. So this is the big thing that they have. I think you need to keep it because, well, at this point, a lot of those small schools, even out on the East Coast, this is their big thing. This is the major one that they have, and they've been doing it for a long, long time.
I mean, Arizona State's going to be big dog coming in next year. They're the
Mhm.
biggest name in most of their sports. So you're just bringing in a different, pun intended, devil, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
And I mean, so yeah, that's why it kind of hurts the NCHC of being so good is trying to get new teams in. Is they need to be a certain caliber team, but they also need to kind of fit geographically and all this other stuff. So it's a plus and a minus when it comes to NCHC with getting new teams.
And I think Arizona State, they've proven over the last few years that they could compete. They they're not going to be an Augustana coming in, or like St. Thomas, even though they were forced into pretty much Division One, and they got piss pounded by St. Cloud their first ever Division One game. Um, Arizona State, they've been established. They've had a chance to make the tournament. Um, I think it works. And then, yeah, geographically, they're close enough. They're within the vicinity.
It's not great, but it'll work.
I mean,
I think without DU and CC, if they weren't in the NCHC, it would definitely be a little bit of a what's going on. But with them relatively close, I think it makes it a little easier.
yeah, and I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind going down to Arizona in the winter, getting away for a weekend. Might
Yeah,
be a little bit nicer.
when we got our schedule and we saw that we were going down the first weekend of this year, this weekend, we were like, well, we need to make it happen, and unfortunately, we're not. But it was like that had been really good practice because I'm hoping we're able to make this like a semi-annual trip to go down to Arizona in the winter to watch hockey. Like that sounds like the perfect situation.
Get away from the snow and the cold for a little bit, and especially probably in Omaha, the wind too. Uh, then you watch hockey and make a little bit longer of a trip out of it too. You're not just going down for the weekend, just 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, I know a couple of our fans that I'm uh, in touch with. They made a huge trip out of it. They left, I think, last week, and I think they've got family or whatever. But yeah, they're doing like a whole 20-day trip just to go down there and watch some hockey and get to see the area to like get some practice because it should be hopefully a long time where it's a trip that you plan every year or every other year.
All right.
So
Well, we've been going about an hour. I think we jump into the matchups if you want to make some picks with us, and
Yeah,
then we'll
let's do it.
wrap this bad boy up.
yeah,
But
hang on. Let me get my phone ready. We're gonna have all three of us on this week, so we can call you out uh, on your picks.
all right, we will start out west in the Desert Hockey Classic, in which Omaha will be taking on UMass Lowell. I do not know shit about Lowell. I'll tell you that right now. So let me go peek at them and lay some information out for us. Uh,
What I know is they've had a tough season. They're
they're six
not
eleven and
great. Not
2
bad.
overall on a 2-game losing streak. They're playing better away from home than at home. They're 1-6-1 at home, 5-5-1 on the road. They've got a win over Alaska Anchorage, a sweep over Colgate, a win over Merrimack and Vermont, and a whole lot of L's. I mean, they've got the farther distance to travel. The only downside I really see in Omaha's game is they just don't travel very much. Um, and we've seen, the travel team, for whatever reason, they've snapped into it and played extremely well. It will be a bit of an early start. I think Arizona is currently on Mountain Time, It's a 3:30 Mountain Time start, which is a 4:30 Central start. Right? Yeah, I know how to math. It's a 5:30 East Coast start. A little bit of an early start. It's going to be a different schedule for them. I mean, if you're that UMass Lowell team, that's a 6. Nope, it's a 5:30 start. I just said it. We listen to your own self-talk. Jesus. I don't know how much that really affects the guys, to be honest. With the amount of travel that these teams put in, they're constantly playing at different times, sometimes late, sometimes early. I give the edge to Omaha. Omaha plays a really good non-conference schedule. The only thing that scares me is like you guys tend to schedule on that lighter side because you're helping out new teams. So as much as your record benefits you in the non-conference, I don't know that it gives us the whole picture of what that Omaha team is. But they've also played decently well to start the year in the conference. So I'm gonna go Omaha over Lowell.
I think I would tend to agree with that. Lowell, they had 2020 kind of screwed up everything in my years and where things are. Lowell did have a good team a few years ago, and they were I believe they were in the Frozen Four, but it was kind of like when there was Ferris State and I think it was Merrimack were right in there. They have that one flash in the pan, and then they just go straight down. And that's kind of where they are, where Omaha, we say it pretty much every week. We have no idea what your team is going to do from week to week. They are probably the most confusing team in the NCHC. But that said, I think the talent level, it's there and they can win. So I think Omaha wins on Friday.
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah, it's one of those on paper. This should be a cakewalk for us. It's definitely a team we can beat. It's a team we should beat, and at this point in the season, it's a team we need to beat. Like you said, they're not having a great season, but those tend to be the games that we might skate a little bit lighter on our feet, might take a couple shifts off. Early game on the road, first game out of the break, haven't played for 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not sure what it's going to be. I think we win. I hope we win. I think it'll be close. It's a Friday game. Omaha tends to kind of take it easy on Friday, unfortunately. So I hope coming out of the break, like I said, I hope they kind of start the right way and get a win. I think they do win. So I think it'll be close though. I don't think they're going to run away with it as much as they should.
All right, sticking with that same series, we'll just go series by series, but we'll rotate back and forth here.
Yeah.
Saturday, January 6th, they will either play Harvard or Arizona State, depending on the outcomes of both games. Omaha's pretty well known for saying you don't fucking lose on Saturdays. As ECA or the Everything College Hockey has told us about that locker room.
Yep.
Two solid matchups though, win or lose here. I mean, Arizona State has played really good against other conference opponents. They split with Denver earlier this year. I think they split or swept Colorado College. I can't remember which one. I think
that was an ugly series against CC, but they swept them.
Yeah.
And
they're definitely putting the conference on notice that hey, we're coming and we're not taking anybody lightly in the conference. I think
the Denver series with them as well. That's going to be a fun matchup in the next few years.
So I want that. I almost want that to be the matchup. Omaha does play really well on Saturday. They beat Western on Saturday to split that weekend. I think there was an overtime game. Yeah, I mean, Omaha doesn't fucking lose on Saturdays. So if they win on Friday, I'm going to give them the sweep. If they lose on Saturday or Friday, I'm still giving them the win on Saturday.
Yeah, if they lose on Saturday or Friday, um, I am pretty sure that they are going to play Harvard because Harvard is 1-7-3. So I'm pretty sure Arizona State is going to win that game. Um, so let's see. How are we gonna? We'll do it like we did last week.
I'm taking Omaha over both Harvard or Arizona State.
Okay, so you're just giving them the clean sweep
Yes.
either way. I'm gonna do like we did with UMD, where Harvard they win, ASU.
I will say I could see that
I don't
ASU
know.
game
They
going
might.
to overtime though.
I think they could lose that ASU. So I'm just gonna be different from you and say they lose, but it's gonna be a close game. It's gonna be a really good game if they play ASU.
Yeah, I think they win. I think Omaha wins Friday, and I hope they play Arizona State because that's just going to be the better matchup for them going forward, getting back into NCHC back next weekend. If they play Harvard, I think they beat Harvard. That should be a cakewalk. I think, like you said, Saturdays are nights. It's been that way for a few seasons now, where Friday's kind of an up in the air. They could win, they could lose. Saturday, there's a very good chance we're going to win. Come back. So I think Omaha wins Friday in a close one. I think they beat Harvard if they play Harvard. I think they lose a heartbreaker on Saturday against Arizona State if they play Arizona State. But obviously, I want them to win. I think they
Well,
could beat Arizona State. I don't think they will.
look at the Bronco fan having more faith than the Maverick fan.
Got
It's
faith in
okay,
the
I do
conference.
I'm just trying to be real. I'm just trying to be real.
I got faith in the conference, my guys. I
Yeah.
got faith in the conference.
I do the same thing.
Arizona State's not
And-
here yet, so they don't get that lean. All right, jumping back up to Friday, Alaska comes to North Dakota for a 2-game set. North Dakota, they're gonna have their better players back in. They're not gonna have that extended roster. Person should be back in net. We know he's a great goaltender. Alaska, let's see what is Alaska doing this year. They have not been as feisty as they were last year, especially in Omaha.
Still decent though. I mean,
'Cause
they're top 25, I think, in the pairwise.
they got into some tussles with you boys last year that were
That was,
fun to watch.
that was an interesting weekend of hockey.
Yeah,
They've
they're
got a split
they're
with
10-7-1.
a split with St. Cloud. They swept Anchorage, swept Stonehill, were swept by Northern Michigan, swept Anchorage again, split with Arizona, or not Arizona, Augustana. And, oh, that's right, they played in the GLI this year. Lost to Tech and beat Ferris State in the third place game.
And I don't know if I might have missed you saying it, but they got swept by Denver.
I missed it. Okay, so they swept Denver. A back and forth team, back and forth schedule. 10-7-1's not terrible. Again, playing slightly better away from home at 6-3. I think North Dakota is going to come out and say, like, that game didn't matter. We weren't playing our starters. That we deserve to be a top 5 team or whatever they are currently. Top 4, top 5, somewhere in that area. They have person. I don't really. I think the only goaltender who really is on the same level as person is Umberko, and Umberko's only a sophomore, so he's only got up to go.
But you could say Cozy too.
Cozy, yeah, he's.
You could say him.
I would the top 2 goaltenders in the conference to me are Person and Umberko in that order. Cozy's just a step below Umberko to me. I think he's had a slight more of a sophomore slump than we've seen with Umberko, but if he can maintain what he's done this year, I think he could definitely be on the path to be similar to what Dominic Bassey's done and turned his career around. Granted, that took going from Colorado College to St. Cloud and getting a better team in front of him, but Mbereko's empowered that Colorado defense to be a lot better, and I think that Omaha has trust in that Cozy to cover some of their defensive mistakes when they make them. But if they can step up their defense a little bit, it'll go a long way to getting Cozy up to that next echelon of goaltenders in the conference.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'll give it to North Dakota on Friday. I think they'll come out big and strong on Friday, but I also don't think that Alaska's not going to roll over and go away quickly. So I'm going to say that they find a way to sneak out a win on Saturday.
I'm going to North Dakota sweep. I just the games that I've watched of North Dakota play, the biggest question was their defensive core. They lost their whole defensive core last year. They lost their goalies. Person we knew what he was when he was coming in. We're like, okay, well, you have your goaltender situation figured out. Not worried about that. It's just the team in front of him, and it was kind of like, is he going into another Miami situation where he has to make 53 saves a night and everything? He hasn't had to do it. I've watched them, North Dakota, play the Gophers. I've watched them play a few other games. They've impressed me. They have made mistakes at times, but I think at this point in the season, they've kind of, because that was earlier in the season, this point in the season, they've figured it out. So I think Friday, North Dakota wins bigger. Saturday is closer, but they still have the talent level. They, from what I know, they have the goaltending advantage. They win closer on Saturday, and they get the sweep.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go. So North Dakota has unofficially played 4 straight overtime games and have lost all of them. So yeah, you can throw out the exhibition game from last weekend, but still, that goes back to Denver, I think, and Colorado College. I think Alaska comes in Friday and takes an overtime win. I think that just keeps rolling. I think it kind of wakes up North Dakota and say, hey, we need to change. Something needs to change here. I think they make a couple small changes if they need to, and I think they win Saturday. But I think Friday, I think anything is possible on Friday. I think Fairbanks comes in, and is like, hey, we see what's going on here, and I think we can get an overtime win.
We will give you extra credit if it's an overtime loss for North Dakota on Friday. You will get extra credit.
To me, I think if Bradbury is looking at that, they have to win Friday. They have to shake off the overtime losses. And again, to the average, or to the team and to the team's record, Saturday against the under 18 team does not count. But to that team that lost, to those players in the locker room, to Bradbury himself, that game counts. And they lost to an underage team. They did not lose to a college hockey team. And they have to stress that, and they have. Like, granted, you're going to say, yeah, but we didn't have our starting goaltender. We didn't have this guy. We didn't have injuries happen throughout the year. You have to play to the circumstances that you're played. And if you're at North Dakota, you're expected to win that game. I don't know how you're not. You're North Dakota.
Like what are their announcers' names? Brandt and
well, Dave Starman does a lot of.
He does the CBS stuff with Alex.
Alex, yes, but they were saying during the game, they were like, "This, yes, it's an exhibition, but these games against the under 18 team is a depth chart
tester,
like a really good look at your depth chart.
Yeah.
And if you lose a game like this, you see maybe we're not as deep as we think we are. Sitting your star goaltender, sitting a couple star guys so that they're not, so they're 100% start when the games really matter. If you lose a game like that, and they did, and granted it was in overtime, but you still, like you said, it's still a loss on the ice for the guys that played. You kind of look at it, it's like, okay, we might need one or two more pieces here at the start of the second half, and then going forward that we might not have seen if this was a regular season game.
And again, this is Bradbury's second loss that I know for sure to the U.S. Under-18 development team. This is the second loss to them since we've been doing the pod for 3 seasons. So 2 and 3 years, like that. The administration is going to take notice. Like, you're not developing players. Like, we're not getting the guys that we want to continue the North Dakota way of hockey and the tradition that we've set here. So I think he's definitely got to be a little bit more on top of the game going into Friday, and that's why I give them the Friday. But that Saturday game's a toss-up, and Alaska's been a team that's responded pretty well throughout the season from what I saw on their schedule.
And I was just going to go with, we kind of talked about it at the start of the season, Wes and I did. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but if this season was kind of going the way last season did for North Dakota, I thought Bradbury was on the hot seat real fast. I think it's a little warm right now, but to me, it's saying a lot about his development and his culture in that program when they're losing so many guys to the transfer portal, and he's having to bring in so many guys from the transfer portal, where it's, I just don't quite, I don't think he's the coach that he was. And when he did win his national championship, that was still Hackstall's, a lot of Hackstall's guys. So I don't think he's quite the coach that he's made out to be. And I think this year, as far as it's going right now, is kind of saving his job for the minute. Because in North Dakota, that's like Alabama football. This is their pro sports team. So I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think he's a little bit on the hot seat.
Yeah, I think like you were saying, like getting to the spot where they're at, having the number 1 ranking, kind of getting the fans back into it and saying, hey, we're still North Dakota. Last year was rough, but back, and they have to keep it going though. I mean, if you start seeing them stick around where they're at in the conference, or even if Colorado College comes up and maybe steals some points with North Dakota losing some points, and you start to see them above them in the standings, I'm sure that's gonna get the fans' attention, and I'm sure it'll be right back to the hot seat after the season. So they've got to stay focused if the fans are gonna keep supporting that team with Bradbury at the helm.
Yeah. Next up, we have Western Michigan, this time making the trip to Lindenwood. 2 teams that have already played a series this year. Western hosting Lindenwood December 1st and 2nd.
That was a fun series.
That was an interesting tilt, to say the least. Lindenwood looked like they were wearing the donated jerseys from Western from a couple years ago. The gold was a little bit different, but definitely similar to what Western used to wear. Also, all iron on, which was an interesting choice. But they're an up-and-coming team. It's interesting to see 2 non-conference opponents get 4 games. We saw that Western. Go ahead.
What are your quick thoughts on Western's non-conference schedule this year?
It's weaker than it has been for sure. That's.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of it just came down to teams not wanting to play them for whatever reason. They made the trip out to Alaska last year. I think they might have canceled a series with somebody else to make that trip. They've played extremely well in their non-conference schedule the last few years. So I mean, I guess it was time for them to take a little bit of a break in the non-conference realm, but they've played it pretty well. They've won the games that they were supposed to win, um, or at least been in the games. You know, they got off to a little bit of a shaky start. The shootout loss to Ferris, and I think one other one. I mean, they have what, two regulation losses on the season, both of those coming to St. Cloud. The other two are an overtime loss to um, Omaha and an overtime loss to North Dakota, I think is who the other one is too. Or no, Denver. I don't think we played North Dakota yet.
Well, while you find that, I mean, if I was a non-conference opponent, would I really want to play the school that, because even though college hockey counts the playoffs as goal totals, the school that had the last two nations leading goal scorers in Ethan Frake and Jason Poland, and then now they get Sam Colangelo, who, if you look at his World Juniors team, half the damn team's in the NHL right now. It's like, what the? And he's lighting it up. And then they had Ryan McAllister last year. I mean, if I was a non-conference school, I'd be like, I know they're a good team, but damn, I
Yeah,
don't really want to do
that
that.
was yeah. Their non-conference schedule was certainly one thing when I was making my episode last week was they've played all of their non-conference teams or games are against unranked opponents, and especially with Lindenwood twice. But every team they played in the NCHC is currently ranked, or Omaha's right on the outside. So
Yeah.
that's been both sides of the sword there. It's a very interesting way that the first half ended, scheduling conference and wise. So
Yeah, so two reg losses, a loss in the shootout to Ferris, a loss in overtime to Omaha, and a loss in overtime to Denver. Um, they're playing well, like I say. I mean, it's for whatever reason, just the teams aren't there to schedule. I know last year for sure that they made a last minute adjustment to their schedule to get the Anchorage games in. They made a deal with Ferris to only play the one game because they ended up going to the GLI last year. So it's a little bit of an interesting schedule. I know they're in the GLI next year, so their non-conference will once again be a little bit weird there. As long as this isn't the new norm, I think a lot of Western people are okay with it. I think they would like to see Michigan come back onto the schedule. Because that's a rivalry that has lasted between the two the teams pulling apart and setting up that rivalry again. I'm sure they'd like to have Michigan State back in the building because, again, it's another local game where it's easy to get to both arenas. Yeah, a little bit interesting schedule. I don't mind. I don't hate it. Western's performed it well. It hasn't necessarily hurt them. They're sitting, I think, 10th right now, 10th or 11th right now in one of the polls after, I think, gaining a spot again with the weird half schedule that was played over the winter break. So they're in a good spot. I think I might have thought they might have performed a little bit better in the conference, but third's not terrible, and there's still plenty of time to make some ground up. So, but I think we see the difference in talent once again here between Western Michigan and Lindenwood. What team was it? Was it? Oh, dude, I hope they find a way to get past this stupid goalie. I'll tell you that. Is this the team that had that little knob?
Yep.
This dude ate 16 some shots. 67?
It was a ridiculous amount, and then
I think he faced 114 shots or 108 shots on the weekend or something ridiculous. It was stupid. 67 shots on goal, and they had 3 goals. I mean, granted, the second game I think they put up 5 or 7 on him, so they figured out how to beat him. I hope they take that into the game. I know at one point the student section was seeing if they could get to 69 and just started counting 67. So that was fun to watch. But
yeah, that was fun. I was watching that because I turned that on because that was the same game.
Yeah, it started 4 more goals, and 3 more goals. So
it was I don't remember who took out the goalie, because then you were
Oh yeah, yeah,
pissed
yeah. That
'cause
was
you're
that
like,
was also the game where Washi kind of nicked the back quarter inch of the goalie's blade, and he fell like a fish, flopped around, and started a scuffle.
yeah. So
I
that
will say
that
though, Tim Washi made more contact with that Lindenwood goalie than Granger did against the Denver goalie. And Western got way more penalized for the Denver incident than we did the Lindenwood incident. And I have issues with that refereeing staff. I have a lot of issues with a lot of referees right now. Just saying, because of the teams I happen to appreciate in my life. The refs are
yeah,
not one of them. The refs are not them.
yeah. That Cowboys game was a little rough for you, wasn't it?
All I'm saying is, to me, refs are not pure zebras anymore. There's a whole lot of zonkies out there. And if you don't know what a zonkey is, you should Google it, because it is when a zebra and a donkey or a jackass happen to mate. And that's all I'm seeing out there is a whole lot of zonkies. All right. I'm
Just
over
go
it.
back to your old Detroit ways and
Either
lose
way,
every game.
Western gets
Anyway,
another sweep over Lindenwood. They're winning both of those games, even if they have to put up 103 shots on that stupid goalie again.
yeah,
God, he was a
I have
wall. Hate him.
I have Western I have Western sweeping as well. I just hope it's as entertaining as the first meetup, especially because of the bad blood that uh comes from the last matchup.
The only downside is I'll just have to listen to the game. I won't be able to watch it because it's in Lindenwood.
Yeah, that is true.
So
Damn it.
Yeah, I don't see a way in which Western doesn't come away with the sweep. That's just what's gonna happen. I'd be surprised if if they don't. But like you said, there's just a little bit of a talent discrepancy that I think Western's just too big and has too much talent to not come away with 2 wins.
yeah, and then the
Finish
last
their non finish their non-conference unbeaten.
Well, there's two more
would be nice.
series left.
Well, there's only one more Friday Saturday series, Michael.
Yeah, that is true.
So let me get my point out before you start cutting me off. Niagara, who just recently coming off a sweep of NCHC opponent in Miami, makes the trip.
Split.
Yep, split. I know how words work. I'm tired. It's late. All right. They make the trip out to Denver. Denver still, I think they're still a top 5 team. The biggest question mark for them is their goaltender. Is Matt Davis really able to come back? Can he pick up where he left off? I think he was still a little weak, even when he was the full-time starter. Their offense is cruising at what it has been the last few years. I think they're still close to, if not at 5 goals a game. Stupid, the ability for that team to reload offensively. Denver is not the team that Miami is. It will not be the same result. If Denver finds the back of the net early, it's going to be a rough night for that Niagara goaltender. But I do think Denver is beatable. And they're not playing as well as they're at home as they have in the past. I mean, we've seen them go all the way to February without losing a game at home. This season, they are 6-2, 6-2-1 at home, 6-3 away, 12-5-1 overall. The most of they took an L from Omaha at home. They took an L from North Dakota at home. Lost to Western here in Kalamazoo. Again, I mean, that trip out to the mountains, it's not really a joke. But I think it hits athletes a little bit less than it hits, regular folk who go out there to see these games. I lean Denver just because of the offensive prowess they have. Yep, I don't know why I chose that word because that was clearly hard for me to get through.
Prowess.
That's a fun word to say.
Just forgot the P in there. I just expected your claws to come out and.
Now my claws have come out enough this episode. Putting those bad boys away. But I'll give the sweep to Denver. They're playing really well. I think their last games were, they had that Minot game, which let's be honest, Was that really much of a game? They did give up 3 goals, but it was a 9-3 game. Their last games outside of that were to Western, a 7-3 loss and a 6-5 overtime win. So defensively, they're struggling. I just don't think Niagara is the team that's going to take complete advantage of that defensive struggle and goaltender struggle that Denver has right now. And the Denver offense will carry them to a couple of wins.
I have the same as a sweep. I mean, Niagara got piss pounded by Omaha the first game that they played them 8-1. Then 2-1 closer, but they split with Air Force. They split with Miami. And I mean, if UMD beats Air Force 4-1 and you're splitting with Air Force and losing to them, I'm not down on my team. I think Denver is way more talented, and I think Denver gets a sweep.
Yeah, same here. I think Denver's ability to score, especially in this series, is enough to carry him through. I could see it going as far as their series with Yale, where they shut him out the entire weekend. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think Niagara gets a couple goals on the weekend, but yeah, they're without a couple key pieces at World Junior, or I guess Zeev Buyum. They're one player that was selected, and they're without Coach Carl. But I mean, I think their ability to score is going to overpower Niagara, and they'll be able to score just way more goals than they're going to allow, which wins games. So I think they'll sweep.
And for poops and giggles, because it doesn't really count, UMD hosting St. Thomas hosting UMD in an exhibition game. Really, I only want to take this game just to say that St. Thomas is going to beat UMD. St. Thomas is currently number 2 in the CCHA with 21 points. St. Thomas has some notable wins this season, so I'm not just literally just pulling it out of the out of nowhere. They have beaten.
They beat St.
Cloud in an overtime game. They went to overtime with Minnesota. They have sweeps over Northern Michigan, Bowling Green, and splits with Minnesota State and Ferris State. I mean, they're playing decent, especially in their conference. This is a game that, Minnesota Duluth has struggled with the Tommies a couple of times. I think they've also railroaded them a couple of times, but let's not sneeze at the fact that their coach.
We only played them once.
Rico Blasi is a former NCHC coach at Miami. So he understands what Duluth is. He knows Scott Sandland. He's coached against him previously. It's a game that doesn't necessarily really count, but Minnesota Duluth, they're coming off a win against Air Force. They're without some key guys. I still don't think their goaltending is what it has been in seasons past.
Not even close.
And again, it doesn't really count, and I just want to make Mike feel bad. So I'm still sticking with St. Thomas on a game that doesn't really count, and I didn't have to pick it.
Well, it's funny because you're not really making me feel that bad. I put it in because I actually was going to put it in for shits and giggles. And I think this is one that we could lose, definitely. I think the St. Thomas team is a lot better than the one that was it last year they came in, or is this their third year? I can't remember if it's their second or third year. I think it's their third year.
I can never remember.
Third.
But I think we played them once, and it was kind of close. I just watched it, even though it was an exhibition as well. Yeah, I could see us losing it, especially with our goaltending issues and our defensive issues, and the fact that I'm pretty sure we have a home entertainment center set up in the penalty box, like we have all year. So we just take it with us and put it wherever we're going if we're traveling on the road. So I actually do think St. Thomas can win this game. So I'm gonna put it as loss too.
Maybe you haven't played them. Maybe I was thinking that St. Cloud State has played them numerous times. And
St. Cloud State has played them numerous times. I know we've only played them once.
Okay.
Well, at least once, maybe twice, but once for sure, because that was last year. About the same. It was just before New Year's or something like that last year,
I would like
and
to see
then
them play this game and it count, though. I'll say that.
I would too. But yeah, last year my my mom was like, "Hey, let's go this. It's over the break." And I'm like, "No, we're going to the game against Western on Saturday because that's going to
Oh,
be a
yeah,
much
yeah, yeah.
better game."
And it
And
was.
for you. But I was like, I had already seen Western play once. Uh,
That team
so
last year was, whew, that was a fun team to watch.
yeah, so I have them as loss. You have them as loss. Brent, any
I'll
opinion?
I'll say Duluth wins. I think it's a close game if Duluth wins. I mean, they had a really strong start against Northeastern last weekend. I saw they were up 2-0, and I thought they were going to, you know, I wasn't obviously watching the game, but I thought that they would have kept held on. And then a couple hours later, I saw that they lost 4-3 in overtime, and I was like, oh, that's unfortunate. So I think if it's close, I think Minnesota Duluth could sneak out a win. But if it's not close, it's probably St. Thomas win. So my official pick will be a Duluth close win. But I think it's a toss up.
Yeah, I
It
think
should
so.
be a good either way.
All right. And then for whatever reason, Colorado College and Minnesota, they decided they're going to play Sunday and Monday. Why? I don't know. I don't know
Big
why. I literally don't know
Big Ten is dumb.
I don't know who's going to go to that Monday game. Like, you got Monday Night Football, you got the college football national championship game. Like, that is a beefy schedule to try and draw people in to that game for. I'm just saying that's poor scheduling. But Minnesota's
Top
not
one
in there.
matchup though.
Yeah,
It's
Colorado
about the only
College
thing they
is
can
ranked,
go in.
and Minnesota is currently 10th. They were as high as 1 at one point, I think. Honestly, you know
Yes.
what though? I will say, if this were on the NCHC TV, which it's not, but if it were, this would probably be the matchup of the weekend to watch. Outside of maybe the Hockey Desert Classic, just because, or the Desert Hockey, Desert Hockey Classic. Did I say
Yeah.
Hockey Desert Classic before? Did I switch desert and hockey? My brain's telling me I did.
Yeah.
But I think this might be the weekend, the matchup of the weekend, outside of the little tournament there in Arizona, and maybe Alaska, North Dakota. That one could be a good one. That's probably going to be the one I watch because it's, I think, the only one on NCHC TV outside of Denver, Niagara. So I'll probably just put both of those on. The only thing that Colorado College doesn't have is offense. They are absolutely terrible at offense. They're 9-6. Yeah.
They have no Alaba, and that is their offense.
Yeah. I mean, granted, they did light up, a D2 school for 7 goals this weekend. And some of those were some crispy, clean plays. They did go to overtime twice against number 1 North Dakota. So maybe as long as Minnesota doesn't undervalue them and overlook them a little bit here, there's a chance for Colorado College. But I think Minnesota is so much more talented, which kind of hurts me to say because I hate all things Big Ten. I think Minnesota is just the more talented team. They're coming off of. They're not the team they were last year when they made it to the finals. But they're still a really good team. They have had some, and they actually beat the U.S. under-18 team. Unlike, I don't know, that team in our conference who didn't. They have a win and a tie against Ohio State, a split against Penn State, a tie and a win against Michigan State, a split with Notre Dame, a win and a tie against Michigan, a win and a tie against Duluth. They were swept by Wisconsin, a win and a loss, so a split against North Dakota, a sweep over St. Thomas, and a win over Bemidji State. They're 9-5-4. So I mean, what is that record-wise? It's a closer matchup than rankings say. And again, I think it's going to be the matchup of the weekend to follow and pay attention to amongst the NC8C teams. And it could very well be a split. If it is, I'm going to say Colorado College wins the Sunday game. So the first one they match up, but then they lose that Monday.
When does the World Juniors end?
I think depending on when they wouldn't be in this game. So anyone on the World Juniors team would not be in this matchup.
That's kind of what I was figuring.
If they're still in the tournament. So if Team USA is still in the tournament and they have guys on the roster, they wouldn't be back for that. I think they would be back the next games, but not these ones.
That's kind of what I was figuring. That being said, I think the Gophers are still more talented and have more firepower than Colorado College. Snuggerud is playing over at the World Juniors. He's probably their best player. I actually will be able to watch these games, so suck it, Wes. But I just the offensive firepower that Minnesota brings. Their goaltending. I give the edge to Colorado College. I just can't see them scoring more than 1 or 2 goals a game. Again, like if they do get it. Plus, it is here at Mariucci, and if this would have been, 2 years ago, I'm pretty sure Colorado College was drawing more fans than they were at Mariucci. But now, since the team has gotten good again, it's going to be a rocking atmosphere. Yeah, they're down some of their guys, but the backups that Minnesota is going to run out there versus what Colorado College has as their top guys, they're just a little bit more talented. So I think it's going to be closer than expected, but I think Minnesota wins both games. No, wait.
Let me just point this out. Colorado College is 5-1 on the road.
Actually, I said that and then I lied because I had already put down Colorado College loses Friday and wins Saturday.
Oh, so we went the opposite way.
Yeah, we went the opposite way.
Colorado's only away loss is to Denver. When Denver swept that home and home series for the Gold Band Trophy. Them boys went into Ralph Engelstad Arena and took 2-3-2 wins over number 1 North Dakota at the time. I'm just saying, like, if it's a close game, Colorado College can win a game.
They can win it. I mean, they can win a game. They just have to keep it close.
If they can keep it close, they have to keep it close. Because if they don't, it's going to be the same result that they had against Western Michigan or Denver. 6-1, 5-1, 3-1, 4-0.
Well, I should say, I was just thinking, keep it close sounds really stupid because if they don't, obviously they're going to lose. Keep it close late, like 0-0 or 1-0, a 1-goal deficit into the third period. That's what they need to do. Because if they're within 1 goal after 2, they can do it. And St. Thomas went to overtime with them. Yeah. So there's a chance. And I think that's why I had just the opposite of you. Because if St. Thomas can go to overtime, they split with or go to overtime with UMD, North Dakota, these teams. Colorado College has a shot at least pulling out 1 point.
Yeah.
Or 1 win.
Yeah, I really want to give Colorado College that Monday night win. And that's just frankly on their world record and what they did at North Dakota. I really want to give it to them. And like you guys are saying, if they can keep it close, I think they could squeak out a tie or a win. But I think Minnesota being at home, and regardless if there's fans there or not, with it being a Sunday, Monday, I think they just got too much. So I think Minnesota sweeps. But it might, like you're saying, it might not be the runaway that most people would think of.
Yeah, Minnesota's pretty close to 500 at home, 4-3-1. Been a little bit better on the road at 4-2-3. So,
Oh, and I guess we should have laid out the rules for what we do for our picks, but overtime and shootout wins, losses, we just count them as straight wins and losses. So, but like I said, with that overtime win or overtime loss for North Dakota, we'll give you extra credit. 0.5 or something like that next to it.
all right. Well, we have hit the almost 2-hour mark, so let's get out of here. It is late on the East Coast. I can't thank you enough for joining us. It's been an incredibly fun conversation. I hope Mike has thought so as well. You are welcome back anytime to talk about, a weekend of hockey if you so wish. You want to let us know some Mavs stuff. Maybe you fill us in on that whole throw in the fish thing next time.
Oh, yeah.
But it is time to do those YouTube things. There's a like button, there's a dislike button, there's a subscribe button, there's a share button. You can use any of them. Use none of them. I don't care. You're all human, adult people, things, persons. Make a decision if you so choose to. There's a comment section. You could tell me that I'm a jerk or an idiot for spilling it out the way I spill it out, but do it. I don't care. Whatever. Our personal things have been under our pictures the whole time. Because there's 3 of us, the Twitter handle has not been scrolling down below, and we can be found. Let me pull it up because I hate reading it. We can be found as a page at Goalhorns and Fight Songs, but it's GOALHRNFIGHTSNG on the Twitters because they only give you so many letters, and I had to figure out which ones to remove. You can email us at gmail.com. That's all the words with all the letters just smushed together into one big long one at Goalhorns and Fight Songs at gmail.com. Brent can be found on his own at Nacho Talk, his podcast, which can be listened to on Spotify, anywhere else that it can be found.
Just Spotify. Well, yeah, just Spotify right now, but I'm working on getting on like Apple and stuff. I've got some requests for that. So.
Okay, so that can be found there. His personal Twitter handle is OMavs Hockey Fan. It has been on the screen under his picture that whole time. This is a long one, so if you stuck around and listened to all of it, if you've pieced it together here and there, that's awesome of you. We appreciate it. Until the next episode, we gone. Bye.